Is it live?
Yep.
Welcome to Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. I am one of your lovely hosts, Erin, and wait, this way, there is Krista.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Good deal. We have a special guest that we've been excited about. We have Mr. D.A. Roberts with us, and the dude in the cowboy hat is my husband.
She's claiming him.
Yeah,
Sounds like my wife. She'll claim me occasionally.
right, exactly.
She's going to claim him today.
Yeah, he's on here. As a lot of you know, most of you know, DA is coming to our Fall into the Supernatural in September. Well, this is September. And
Maybe this month.
yes, coming up, just a few weeks. And he's going to do our Sasquatch portion for us, and then he's also going to talk about some dogmen for us. So the reason I have Ray on here, Ray is actually going to be doing our opening ceremony for Fall into the Supernatural. He has a group that he started 8 years ago called Horses Carrying Hope. And Horses Carrying Hope, we've done fundraisers for foster children, for battered women, for Wounded Warrior, different food pantries. So he's all about helping the public. And when he heard that this goes to focus, when I asked him to do the Star Spangled Banner with the horseback, he was all about it. So, And it's kind of a weird story how Horses Carrying Hope got started. So I'll let him touch briefly on it, and then we'll get right in with DA. You're up, right?
Oh, I'm up. Well, nobody said anything. So, like I say, everybody knows, my wife, Krista, she does the ghost stuff and everything. The one thing that Horses Carrying Hope has familiar, or I guess, I don't know how to explain it, but with the paranormal, some years ago, I was in a bad point in my life, just down now, and this and that. My mom just passed away. Had a lot of things going on. At one point, I was done with the horses. I just need to focus on something else. I was going down the highway, driving my old truck, and we're talking about trucks just falling apart, just driving it. The only thing that really worked was the radio. So I always had radio jamming, just trying to block everything out. So I was coming home from work, and all of a sudden the radio just quit. I'm like, really? The only thing I got, and it quits. So keep on driving, just going down the road. And all I started hearing, ride. I'm like, do what? Trying to figure out where this is coming from. Then I heard Bobo ride. This story always gets me worked up, so I'm going to try to get through it. So Bobo is my nickname that my mom always gave me. So by then now I'm freaking out, and I just kept hearing Bobo ride. So it was like, ride what? If you knew me from the past, I rode bulls, broncs, anything. If you can ride it, I've been on it. So I was like, ride what? So I get home, telling Krista about it, and trying to figure this out. So the only thing I could figure out to do is keep riding horses. She did not want me to stop riding. So now, figure out what to do. That's when I come up with the idea of taking food to the food pantry on horseback. So I would go ride my horse to the grocery store, fill my saddlebags up, and take it to the food pantry. So after doing that a few times, I started watching kids reenacting with the horses, and the adults coming up. And the feeling that I got was wonderful. So some more time went by, and I was like, I'm going to start something, but don't know what. And me and Krista talked, and we come up with Horses Carrying Hope. So with that, we started doing events to raise money or for food drives. People come see our event and donate the food or give money or wherever they wanted to give. And it started out slow. Didn't have a lot of people. But I always told Krista, if I can make one person smile with whatever we're doing, it's been worth it. So that's kind of my story, how the paranormal kind of comes in with Krista. And she asked me to do the open ceremony, and I was pretty proud and anxious to get it done. So I'll be there.
Yep. So it'd be cool. We do it to a not so typical version of the Star Spangled Banner. It's kind of a heavy metal version, but we love it. And it's pretty good watching on horseback. And Erin can attest, she's seen it. And we use the flags and the whole 9 yards. So it's a good time. So you guys can get Fall into the Supernatural, September 23rd and 24th. Come see us. We'd love to have you. And I just posted today, we had a meeting last night, and we decided if people buy 2 or more tickets for the VIP portion, I think it's his. If they buy 2 or more, no, maybe it's not. Okay, is that better? It's you.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and leave this little deal here. Like I say, I really appreciate y'all letting me come on and speak a little bit. And like I say, for anything I can do for y'all, just let me know.
Good to meet you, Ray.
Yeah, same here. See y'all later.
Okay, let's remove him. Okay. Anyway, so the tickets we have, if you buy 2 or more for the VIP, they are 15% off. So it's like $85 a person, which is cheap for all weekend. That includes the meet and greet, the Sasquatch portion, the conference portion, and the ghost hunt. The only thing it does not cover is the gallery reading with Erin and Jessica Potter. So anyway, but now we can get on to DA. So
DA's in the house. Gonna tell us about weird shit.
Well, there's plenty of it in the Ozarks, I can tell you that. And that's just my relatives.
Right? The ones we claim.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny because when I told our friend Brandy, she's also an admin on our page, and she's a member of my team. She knew all about who you were. She was like, oh my God, really? I mean, she totally
well, that's awesome.
All excited. So I actually invited her to join your pages as well. So I know she did because she's all about it. So
that's fantastic. I love hearing that. I'm glad she likes the books.
Yeah. So you do have a couple groupies.
When we went to the Dogman conference in Paris, Tennessee, when we got there, when we were first pulling in to the parking lot, there were 2 ladies that I hadn't met previously, but had spoke to them online. Were just like waving like crazy as we're pulling in. I looked at my wife. I go, "Who the hell are they waving at?" She goes, "I think they're waving at you." I'm like, why?
Right?
It was pretty cool. I got immediately out of the car. I'm taking pictures and talking to people. It was freaking awesome. I got to meet some awesome people there.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Awesome.
Guys, do you think you're going to have another Dogman conference?
I think they're already planning it. I talked to Josh Turner. I told him I'd like to be in on the planning stages, but right now it's just kind of ideas bouncing at this stage. So I'm hoping that I can be in on the creative side of it for the next one, because it was awesome. There was like 270 people there, and they only were planning to sell 200 tickets. Yeah, it was freaking cool. Wow. We were just absolutely mobbed at the table. It was fantastic. I got to meet so many awesome people.
Yeah. If my daughter hadn't been getting married in Colorado, I would have been there. I mean,
family's important. You got to go to those weddings, especially your kids.
Exactly. That's why I'm hoping next year that there's another one, and I'll be able to go to it for sure. Because I mean, I like doing all of this, we've met a lot of cryptid people, and, it's one thing to talk on here, but to actually meet face to face, that's great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the fall into the supernatural to actually get to hang out and talk to you guys.
Right. You may think we're some crazy people.
Well, I'll be in good company then. I mean, my kind of people.
That's funny. But anyway, so let's talk about your books.
Sure. What would you like to know?
How did you get started in writing books?
I've been writing since I was a kid. I wanted to be a writer as far back as I can remember, except for a period of time between I think 75 and 77 when I wanted to be a lawyer. Man, I'm glad that I woke up and that kind of passed. But I've wanted to be a writer pretty much my whole life, and I had a few short stories published over the years and some poetry. I still kind of write poetry once in a while, but never really had anything big published until 2012 when my first book was published, and right around my 40th birthday, before I started writing my first novel that was published, which was Ragnarok Rising: The Awakening. I'd been telling my wife the whole time we've been married that I wanted to be a writer. And she finally just looked at me one day and goes, "You're either going to do it or not." She said, "You just can't quit. You're 40 years old. If you're going to do it, do it." And it kind of lit a fire under my butt. And when I got the idea for the Ragnarok series, it just took off. And now 26 books later, I'm still going strong.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. What's your favorite book that you've wrote?
I always say that my favorite one is the one I'm currently working on, but the very first book I published, Ragnarok Rising: The Awakening, will always have a near and dear place in my heart. It's like the first kid, But I tell everybody what I learned with that book was how not to write a book. Because I made so many mistakes that I had to go back and fix before it was ready to be published that I learned those lessons and took them to heart, and I try to learn something new with each passing book, and I think I've got my style down pretty well now. I know what to look for, and my editors are pretty happy because there's a whole lot less red these days than there was in the first stages.
I hear you.
Isn't that how it is with first kids though too? Like,
oh yeah,
you're like, oh, well, we set that one up for therapy.
Yeah, your first kid you practically wrap in bubble wrap, and by your third kid you're like, oh, he'll be fine.
Pacifier drops on the ground, you just lick it off and stick it back in their mouth.
Right.
You're not bleeding. You're fine. Like my mom, when I'm the youngest of 11, so when I'd come in the house with a skin knee, my mom would be like, "You're fine. Go back outside."
Spit on it. You're good.
Yeah, get that old dark orange iodine that they'd put on. Oh my God, it's like pouring acid on it.
Right. So, are you going to have some books with you?
Oh yes. I'll be bringing copies of pretty much everything, and hopefully, cross my fingers. I don't know if I can get it in time, but I'm trying to have the current book finished and into edits and cover, so I can do pre-sales there, so people can order those ahead.
Awesome.
But I'm trying to finish my current project, so I don't know. It's close.
You only got a few weeks.
Yeah.
It's crunch time. No pressure.
No pressure.
None.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Sure. When I first started the podcast, I wanted to do something. How I came up with the name, I wanted to do something that was alliterative toward my writing career. And if you've ever heard the term Deus Ex Machina, means machine of the gods, and it's an old writing trope. You would read those books where they would write the hero into a corner, and then something miraculous would happen and save the character. That's basically Deus Ex Machina. They have to use basically divine intervention to save the character. And I always thought that was a funny trope, and I try to avoid that in my own writing, but I wanted to do a play on that, and so it became DA Ex Machina, the machine of DA, and it just it spiraled from books to horror authors to cryptids and monsters, and it's just it's still going. Right.
Somebody just asked. Let me put it up here. David wants to know, what do you charge for your books at the show?
The print editions are $15, and except for the collection of short stories, I think it's $13.
Okay.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, it is.
That's a good deal.
Right.
For what
Back
you're-
on-
for
back
what you're
on your-
getting.
Back on your podcast, I got to say, I can't always listen live because I have kids and stuff, but I always go back and I do listen to them. Last night I was able to hit the live, and that was actually pretty good. I learned a
We had a
lot.
good time with last night.
Yeah,
We really
that was
enjoyed
a
it.
good show. And I like all your guys you have on there too. They seem like just some good old boys, all you guys.
My merry band of roughnecks.
Right, but
I think a couple of them are in the audience.
you guys
Yeah.
are mine and Aaron's kind of people, just saying.
Right.
We're all a bunch of weirdos, but we seem to click pretty well. It's really, I've got a great team of guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Anthony's in the audience tonight. So is Robbie Rains.
Mhm.
Doc is freaking awesome. I mean, all of us have just realized we had so much in common, and within a few days of talking to each other, we felt like we'd known each other all our
Right.
lives. And now we just kind of bicker back and forth and tell the same stupid jokes and laugh at everything. And we just have a good time. It's the whole intent of the podcast was to seem more like a natural conversation, like you'd have with somebody over
Right.
a couple of beers instead of us interviewing people like, where were you on the 23rd?
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
exactly. And honestly, that's what kind of Aaron and I do. We were friends before this.
Mhm.
We met through paranormal, and we just clicked. And so she hit me up. She's like, "Hey, what do you think about a podcast?" So I'm like, "Yeah, that kind of sounds fun." And so it just kind of started like that. And then when we picked the name, I got to say, it was kind of like a marketing thing, I was like a bait thing, to bait people in there. But then they realized, oh, it's not naked ladies. It's talking about paranormal,
Well, I gotta admit, the first time I saw the name of the podcast, I read that with an extra B at the end. I'm like, kind of show is this?
Like, oh no.
No.
My wife's gonna
Oh,
murder me.
no. They're
No, honey, I wasn't watching that. No.
Description.
So, I mean,
Well, and
and
we,
it's
like,
worked.
Honestly, too, like we had let's admit it, Krista, we had probably been drinking that night too. Like it was
Probably
one of those we're sitting around drinking and laughing about stupid stuff, and I think one of us said, "What about blondes and booze?" And we were both like laughing, and then we're like, "Wait a minute."
Or it would have been just as
That's so
catchy if
bad.
instead of BOOS, it was BOOZE.
Yeah.
Right?
Blondes and booze.
Well, I think we probably said that too while we were drinking. We're like, ah. But
Right.
We do that on our show some night. We're like, hey, what's everybody drinking tonight?
Right.
right.
Well, right now, I personally am drinking wine. So,
Right. Well, and like kind of like what you said, DA, that it's nice to just have a podcast sometimes. I don't like to go on don't go off on left field, but just a conversation, because sometimes these are topics that people are very uncomfortable with. And sometimes it's topics that they're embarrassed about, or they don't know and they feel stupid, or they're trying to learn about. And what better way to learn about it than it being very casual,
Exactly.
and very, hey, we're weird. I didn't think this was possible, but I'm sitting here now with people talking about it, So I think that gives this kind of podcast and your kind of podcast a real good group of people that want to learn in a safe environment and a fun environment. Because honestly, if we're all going to be weird, shouldn't we have fun doing it?
Yeah. If you can't enjoy what you're doing, why do it?
Right. If you're going to be serious and stingy about it, come on now. We can't laugh at each other. Look what we're doing. Come on now. It's cool.
Exactly.
It was like when I was a cop, other officers would say, you're always so calm. How do we know you when you don't like somebody? I said, when you see me not joking with somebody, that's a pretty good clue.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
If I'm not pulling your leg, I don't like you.
Right. Exactly. So the infamous question, why cryptids? How'd you get into Dogman and Bigfoot and
Well, it started with Bigfoot. When I was a goofy kid back in the early 70s and here in the Ozarks, of course, all the rage back then was Momo the monster, because Momo had been seen up near Louisiana, Missouri back in 1972. And there were still, even 4 or 5 years later, there were still accounts of people seeing it not only in that area, but in other places in Missouri. And of course, I saw the Patterson-Gimlin film, and I watched those old Leonard Nimoys. And my mom bought me a couple of those Time Life books that had monsters in it, like the Loch Ness Monster. I probably read those things until they fell apart. Well, that really kind of started an interest in it. And as a kid of about 7 or 8 years old, I would go around and ask all my cousins and aunts and uncles, "Have you ever seen Bigfoot?" And they're all like, "Oh, no, yeah." They thought I was just a moron. Well, my Uncle Buddy, his name was actually James, but Uncle Buddy had married my mother's sister, my Aunt Violet. Uncle Buddy was full-blood Cherokee. And we were out at his house. Well, I spent a lot of time out at his house. I practically grew up out there. But we were out at his house one day barbecue. And while everybody was out running around, I went in the house to go to the bathroom, and Uncle Buddy called me over to him and picked me up, put me in his lap. He says, "Douglas, I'm going to tell you something." I'm like, "What's?" "Oh, my name's Douglas." I just kind of let the cat out of the bag, but I go by DA. He says, "I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen to me." I'm like, "Okay." He said, "Those things you've been asking about, they're real. And I've seen them on this property, and you need to be careful." And from then on, it was just, he was not the kind of guy that would spin yarns. He wasn't a drinker. He was a combat Marine in Korea. I mean, this guy was rock solid. Just one of the best guys I've ever known in my life. Taught me how to deer hunt. Taught me how to track and fish.
Wow.
I mean, just an awesome guy, like a second dad to me. And for him to just set me down and tell me that just absolutely cemented in my head. And then I had a couple of my own experiences on his land. And from then on, I was just head over heels. I mean, I couldn't, when I was a cop, it was kind of on the down low, because you don't want people to think you're crazy when you're on the witness stand.
Right.
But I've had an interest in Bigfoot for the last 45 years.
Wow. So can you tell us about your experiences on that property?
Well, I didn't have a visual sighting, but it couldn't really have been anything else. And this happened to me twice. One night, one early morning, I was out in my deer stand waiting for the sun to come up. And my uncle's land had 165 acres right up against 5,000 acres of conservation land. And when I say he lived in the middle of nowhere, I'm telling you, he lived in the middle of nowhere. His closest neighbor was miles away, not blocks.
Wow.
And there was never anybody allowed to hunt on his property but him and family.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only one that was supposed to be out there that day. Well, I'm up in my tree standing, and I'm about 12, 13 feet off the ground up in this big walnut tree. And I hear somebody approaching behind me, and I could tell it's somebody because it's, you can tell the bipedal steps. It doesn't sound, animals on 4 legs sound very different when they walk. But whoever was approaching behind my tree stand was coming up straight behind me, and I could hear the single footsteps. And I thought it might be my uncle, but I thought, man, that's kind of heavy. Is he stomping? And as it got really close to the tree, I went, "Hey, who's back there?" And it stopped. And I heard this big intake of breath, like whatever it was big. It was like, and then I heard it turn and walk away. And before I can get down out of this tree stand, because the tree was too wide to lean around, by the time I climbed down out of that deer stand, it's gone. And I'm looking around. I can see the impressions where it went, where it stepped in the leaves with my flashlight. And I'm like, what the hell was that? I was 15, 16 years old at the time, and told my uncle about it. And he's like, "Yeah, you were approached by one." And he said, they're out there. And then about a year later, the following deer season, on that same property, same deer stand, but in another section of the land, I was up in the stand, and I'd been waiting. I had buck fever. I wanted to get a good buck. And I'd passed on several small ones and a couple of does. I'm like, no, waiting for that big one. Got to get a good one. And this one comes out, and he's a trophy. Oh, he's beautiful. Big, probably a 12-point rack. And I was hunting with a British 303 using soft tip bullets. I hit him broadside, and he dropped. I'm just down, and I knew I had him. But anybody that's ever gone deer hunting will know sometimes they get up, and then you got to track them. Mm-hmm. By the time I got down to the tree, he got back to his feet and took off. So I get over to where he dropped to start following the blood trail, and there was a lot of blood. It wasn't like I winged him. He was hurt. There's a lung tissue, what we refer to as lung butter, was laying on the ground. Oh, I got him. He's not going far. And I'm start tracking him, and I'm finding big drops of blood, not like small little blood trail, like big meaty drops of blood. Goes to a ravine that drops down into a dry creek bed and jumped off. Well, it was 20, 22 feet down. There was no way I was jumping down that without breaking a leg. So I had to backtrack down this gully, find a place where I could crawl down without killing myself, and then backtrack to where it was. By the time I got back to where it had dropped, you could see in the leaf litter that it had dropped in where it had bled out. There was a lot of blood. There wasn't another drop. There wasn't anything. I spiraled out in every direction I could go. There wasn't another blood drop. There were no tracks because it was rocky ground, and it was gone. And at the time, there were no black bears in Missouri. They didn't reintroduce black bears in Arkansas until what was about 25 years ago.
Right.
This was about 86. So no black bears. Mountain lions were rare, but a mountain lion would have had to have dragged it off. It was too big for it to, mountain lions aren't going to throw it over its shoulder and carry it off. Without field dressing, it probably weighed 180, 200 pounds. It was a big buck.
Right.
And so even me in the prime of my youth there, I was bucking hay and cutting wood all the time. I was a pretty strong hillbilly kid. I would have had to dragged it out. And I was a pretty big kid. So there are no drag marks. There's nothing. And I know it can't be coyotes because I've seen coyote kills and they literally destroy it. You'll find pieces everywhere. And there was no time for them to have eaten it. Coyotes couldn't have dragged it off. And again, no drag marks. So we had these little Motorola radios, and my uncle was back at the house. I get on the radio and I tell him, I say, "Hey, Uncle Buddy, I think somebody's out here on your land." He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "My deer's gone." He's like, "Did you find any tracks of anybody?" I said, "No, there's no tracks. It's rocky ground." He said, "Where are you at?" So I told him where I was at. Property I told you not to hunt on. I said, "I was tracking a deer. That's where it went." And he said, "Well, get out of there. You're never going to find that deer." I said, "No, somebody took my deer. Somebody picked it up. They're gone." And he said, "Listen to me. I'm telling you, get out of there. You don't want to be on that section of the property, and you are not going to find that deer. Get out of there." And so I went back, and he said, "Look, that part of the property I don't hunt on because bad things happen if you go in there hunting." He said, "You're never going to find that deer."
Wow.
Wow.
Those two experiences on that land, I was just like, I was so close to seeing it.
Right.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy.
That's scary. That's scary.
Well, it had to have been watching me. I mean, it had to have been
yeah.
right there in that vicinity when I dropped that deer.
Yeah. Well, out there at Big River Ranch where this event's happening, I was told I had a Sasquatch experience and I didn't see it either. But I had this overwhelming feeling of being watched.
Mm-hmm.
And I was scared. And like I said, I've done, the paranormal and I've done bad cases and all kinds of stuff. And nothing, I don't get up and run off like a little girl. But I was truly scared. And I had my dog out there. It was like 2:00 in the morning and I was outside smoking. And then my friend Kathy was sleeping on the couch in the camper. And I went in, I woke her up. I was like, "You got to come out here. There's just something off. It's just not right." So she came out and she's like, "Whoa, it's not right." And honest to God, we brushed it off as being, like a raccoon or something, and we never talked anymore about it. Never posted nothing on Facebook, nothing. Well, then last year's Fall into the Supernatural, Jessica Potter, that'll be there this year. She pointed out to that area and she said, "Tell me what happened over there." And she said she's seen my dog. I have an English Mastiff dog.
Well, I used to have Mastiffs. I loved English Mastiffs.
Yeah, and she's like, "I see, a big brown dog, and she was describing, and Kathy was there with me, and Kathy, it hit us both. She's like, "Oh my God, that night," and she was looking a little more and kind of looking over into the woods, and she said they're the Watchers. She said that was Sasquatch.
I've heard a lot of Native Americans refer to them as the Watchers.
That's what she called it, was the Watchers. And so that, really freaked me out. I'm like, oh my God, because I was interested in them, but I'd never had anything, And so since then, Kathy, she you'll meet her at Fall into the Supernatural, but she stays out there at the ranch 5 nights a week. She has horses out there. And she's told me since then, she gets that feeling still out there at times, every so often, that of being watched, and she'll hurry up and run into the camper. So I'm hoping that weekend, that maybe we can call them in. I don't know. But
we're going to try. We're going to do our best.
Well, and 7 miles away from there, there's a police officer also going to come and talk to you that evening. He was our speaker last year about his experience, and his happened 7 miles from there.
Nice.
And he actually paid someone to do a drawing of what he saw. Mm-hmm. And being a police officer, as you know, you don't want to tell anybody, but he did. And so he was getting ridiculed, and he took a lie detector test, and he has the results, and it plainly says, there's no deceit here.
No deceit.
Yeah. And he brought it. And so he actually had messaged me about you coming, and I told him to bring his drawing and bring his lie detector test and come talk to you.
Yeah, I'd love to meet him.
About it, because I mean, and he's a Kansas City police officer to this day.
Nice.
So it's crazy, you know, because I feel like his encounter was only 7 miles away from the ranch. You know, who knows, it could have been the same one, maybe a same family, you know, that Kathy and I encountered. I don't know, but you know, so I just think it's pretty cool myself.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it was peaceful, I guess, you know, because I've heard both. I've heard, you know, people have negative encounters, and then I hear people that, you know, like mine and Kathy's, we were just being watched, you know.
Well, animals are just like people. I mean, they have distinctively different personalities. I mean, I've got a pit bull mix now that is just the biggest chicken on the planet, and the biggest
too.
lap dog.
Yeah,
He's just a big lovable goofball. But you know, you find another dog of the exact same breed, and it might be just nasty. It's just
Right.
every animal's got different personalities, and if you run into the wrong one, it can be very, very bad.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
So I don't know if Krista told you, but I'm born and raised Washington State. I've only
So you're up
actually
the Pacific Northwest.
I'm up there. Yep. And so like I've only lived here probably about 7 years now. And Bigfoot in Washington State is a thing. Like everybody talks about it. Everybody's got somebody who knows someone who's had an experience. I personally have never had an experience. I'm still like, I want to kind of tell a lot of people, I've never experienced anything. I don't know, but I'm so interested in it because so many people that I talk to about these things, it's real to them. And I've noticed that it's a lot of hunters, people that know the land, know animals. They have these experiences. So growing up in Washington State, my grandfather was a park ranger, forest ranger. So I would go out in the woods with him all the time. And I remember being so, you know, like every kid, kind of like what you were saying, especially in Washington State, all kids want to know about Sasquatch. And I lived in the woods. So I would stare out my window and go, oh, crap, Sasquatch is out there. Like, you know,
might have been.
Wow. Might have been. So I would like always be scared. And I remember asking him, is there really a Sasquatch? Thinking he'd tell me, nah, you know, no, there's no such thing as Sasquatch. And I remember him telling me, Aaron, the woods are so big. And if we can't find a bear that's died of natural causes, how are we going to, I mean, it could be the same thing.
I've been in and out of the woods most of my life and never seen a bear carcass.
Yeah. And he told me that if they find a bear carcass, it's because it's been poached. It's been shot. And
did she
so he said, you know, nobody growing up in that area, it is huge. Because I remember like just living out there, when you're driving through areas, you'll see a tree and you think, God, how far out there is that? Because it's just trees upon trees. And it's so much property that people they don't go to. So to me, I just think like with all these people's experiences, there has to be something out there because there's just too many. And then a lot of the pictures I've seen, I don't know if you've seen this one, DA, but they showed a video footage and it's from the DOT in Washington State. And I
have seen that footage.
And it's called Snoqualmie Pass. They said it wrong, but it's called Snoqualmie Pass. From somebody who's lived out in that area, how there is somebody or something just walking out there on Snoqualmie Pass is beyond me, because you don't just happen upon that area. You go up that pass. If you get stuck on that pass, good luck. I mean, good luck getting a tow truck. Good luck. Yeah. You're in trouble. So just somebody or something walking out there, to me, when I saw that video footage, I was like, oh my gosh, that was huge for me. I was blown away by that because it's such a remote area and you don't just walk around there. It's not like there's houses just right down the road. It's a ski area and it is cold and it is remote. It was just crazy when I saw that.
Well, it's like if you've ever talked to Doug Hychek, who the producer of Monster Quest, when they were up at Snell Grove Lake in Canada, the only way to get there is by float plane. It is
right.
hundreds of miles in the back country. People don't backpack out there, and for them to be at a cabin on Snell Grove Lake and something start throwing rocks at them,
Yeah.
there's not some backpacker that's like, hey, what's the mess with these guys? Because they didn't come in. They didn't come in by float plane. That's the only way to get there.
Right. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Those are the things that really make me so interested in this and want to know more. You know, I'm in the paranormal and I'm a medium. So who am I? You know, I talk to dead people. So who am I to say that there isn't something else out there? I mean, I'd be ridiculous to say that, oh, there's no Sasquatch or there's no Dogman.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I talk to dead people. Like, how am I supposed to, you know?
I wish you'd have been with us at that cemetery today. I really think you would have, because I'm like, I tell everybody I'm a psychic brick. I don't sense nothing. And even I felt weird there.
Yeah. Well, if you ever go back, give us a holler.
Oh, we're going back
to Springfield.
As soon as I get the okay to go in there after dark, we're going to go back right at dusk and start setting up and filming, and hopefully my equipment will work this time.
Yeah, give us a holler. That would definitely be worth a trip down there to Springfield.
It's really cool. It's right off it's literally just outside of Springfield. I didn't even know it was there until somebody pointed it out to me.
Wow, very cool. We used to do our old paranormal group did ghost investigations. We held public events at the Pythian Castle.
That's a really cool place. I like that place.
Yeah, so I've been there probably 10 plus times doing an event. That's a pretty haunted location.
Very.
Yeah, it was. Erin, you went to the Pythian.
Yeah, I did, and it was very interesting. It was we got a lot of really good EVPs from that. Like it was really good. Yeah,
my daughter-in-law, she's got really super long hair, and she had her hair pulled there, so it's kind of cool for her.
Well, the cemetery we went to has a reputation for being very active. There are people that have been out there that have been shoved, scratched, and actually been ran out of the place. We didn't have any of that happen, but we did have some really odd occurrences.
Right. Very cool. There's David says, DA, he'd love to check out Joe Bald and Blunk Road too.
Joe Bald is where I captured what we think is a Dogman on video.
Really?
It's an old abandoned campground down near Kimberling City. It's been shut down for 25 years. When I started digging into it, the only reasoning I could find were there were supposedly some disappearances associated with the park. And we went down there to shoot a promo video for a book I was writing that was set in that area called The Lakeview Man. And when we were down there, my buddy Steve and I, we shot this video talking about the book and the area, and went on our merry way and didn't think anything about it. Year and a half later, as we're talking about the video, and I played the promo video on one of our podcasts, one of the guys that was in the audience, he said, "Hey, wait a minute, something's moving behind you." And I'm like, nah, I've watched that video 100 times. There's nothing back there. And he goes, "No, I'm telling you, behind one tree over on the other side of that little concrete bridge, something moved." So I sent the video to a couple guys I know that do video editing, and sure enough, they said, yeah, there's something moving back there. And even M.K. Davis, who's done all the analyzing of the Patterson-Gimlin footage, I showed the footage to him. He's like, yeah, I can't say what's back there. He said, but there's something definitely moving back there. And we've got some enhanced stills, and we got a breakdown video of that, and that's a really creepy area. And Blunk Road is another area that I wrote about in relation to an Ozarks Howler sighting. And I went down there and shot another video, and it's just a pretty creepy little place. It's off the beaten path, a little hard to find, but it's worth going down to because it's just really neat in how creepy it is.
So I have a question. What do I have to do to get to go with you on one of these excursions?
We don't plan them real far in advance. We just like, hey, let's go do this. So yeah, next time we're planning a big one, I'll let you guys know. Maybe we can get a group together. And
for sure.
There's a campground I haven't gone to yet that we should take a group to. It's on the other side of Table Rock Lake. It's called the place is called Combs Ferry, And I don't know what happened at this campground. I have no idea why the Army Corps of Engineers would shut down an active campground and bulldoze off the entrance.
That's weird.
Wow.
When considering a half acre of land on Table Rock Lakes going for $150,000 to $200,000 just for the half acre of land, for them to shut down 2 lakefront campgrounds of about 200 acres of property and not let people in them anymore,
Right.
it's not a big leap of the imagination. Something happened.
Right. Exactly. So what can you tell us about? Are you thinking like that could be more Dogman, or do you think it would be more Sasquatch?
Well, I can't really call it a sighting because we didn't see it until afterwards. We saw it on the video, but the incident that we recorded down at Joe Bald, I believe, was a Dogman. But there are Bigfoot sightings in that area. Not far away, I talked to a fisherman who was down actually very close to Blunk Road, who was it's where the James River flows into Table Rock Lake, and he took his little fishing boat, his little bass boat, with a trolling motor back into this little slough. And when he was back there, he said something started chucking bowling ball sized rocks at his boat, and he fired it up and got out of there. He said, never saw it, but that's not something a couple high school kids are going to do. This is a solid rock that probably weighed 80 to 100 pounds. Nobody's going to lob it at an arc out of the trees.
Right.
And he said, 2 or 3 of them came very close to hitting his boat. He said, would have sank me. And I said, what'd you do? He goes, well, I fired up the big motor and I got the hell out of there.
Wow, that's crazy.
So there are all kinds of weird sightings of different creatures, including the Ozarks howler down around Kimberling City and Table Rock Lake. That's just a really active area.
Wow. Is there, okay, so just because I'm curious, I live in St. Charles County.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you know of around me?
There's a little north of you. There's quite a bit of activity up near Hannibal, Missouri. In fact, they call it the Hound of Hannibal. A lot of Dogman activity. There's been a lot of Bigfoot seen along the Missouri River, especially up near Herman. There's quite a few sightings near Herman, Missouri. So that area, the area is pretty active. I wouldn't rule it out that it's right there in St. Charles County. The thing that people fail to realize, and people think that we, as our modern civilization, are the masters of from coast to coast of the United States. Go to Google Maps and zoom out and use the satellite view, not the street view. Zoom out and look at a map of the United States in its entirety from space, and you will see thousands of miles of unbroken green. Mm-hmm. You could go from the big thickets of East Texas almost to Canada by following most of the Mississippi River. And they're going to have to cross roads. They might even have to go cross highways or go under bridges to avoid being seen. But between the Upper Peninsula of Minnesota all the way down the Mississippi are huge tracts of forest that are unbroken. You get into the Mark Twain National Forest, and then the Ozarks National Forest that runs into the Ouachita Mountains, and that runs into East Texas and the swamps of Louisiana. You've got a huge section where a lot of creatures could live without ever being seen.
Yeah, my husband, he rides all the time down Mark Twain National Forest. He goes down to Ozark Scenic, and his favorite place is to go to Caney Mountain in Arkansas. And I tell him, I was like, you need to be packing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And he told me, he's like, I'm in the woods all the time. I've never seen anything. And I told him, I said, but they've seen you. I tell them that all the time. They've seen you. You must not be a threat.
We tell people all the time on our show, if you're going to go out camping, hunting, fishing, hiking, backpacking, horseback riding, Bigfoot hunting, cryptid hunting, whatever you're going to do, if you're going to be away from basic 911 services, take a medical kit. Let somebody know where you're going and when you're supposed to be back, because odds are really good you're not going to get cell service when you get off the beaten path. And take something to defend yourself. If you don't believe in carrying a firearm, take bear spray, take a stick, take a sword, take something. But you need to come home, because there's things out there that can and will hurt you. Bears, lions, snakes, wild dogs, coyotes. And they're saying even wolves are now returning to Missouri. A lot of them in northern Missouri, not so much down this way, but it would shock me. And then, of course, what I refer to as the greater North American meth head. You just might run into somebody and not come back.
I tell him that all the time, and he feels like it's so safe to be out there. And I grew up, my parents were divorced. My dad always lived in the country. And he was down when I was a kid in like Catawissa, Pacific, Missouri area. And you know, he always used to tell me the woods are the safest place. There's nothing out here that's going to hurt you. And then as I got older, I'm like, what the hell? Was he trying to get me killed off or something? You know, because we were outside playing at night, you know, being stupid, running around. But no, you know, now I realize, wow.
After almost 20 years of law enforcement in my background in the Ozarks here, in the greater Springfield area, after almost 20 years, I can tell you, I don't go check my mail without a firearm on. And I have seen the underbelly of the society around here, and it ain't pretty.
Right, exactly. It's crazy. It's crazy. What can you? I know you've been to Land Between the Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of touch base on that story and what you can tell us about being there?
There are a lot of stories of dogman encounters coming out of Land Between the Lakes. In fact, the first recorded incidents of a dogman-like creature being seen was by French trappers in the late 1600s. That area was originally known as the Land Between the Rivers. The Kentucky and I believe it's the Cumberland River that flowed through that area. It created an area they referred to as the Land Between the Rivers, like a giant island between these two rivers. And that area has just been rich with lore of Bigfoot creatures and dogman type creatures, even legends of rumors of attacks and even people being killed. 1963, President Kennedy authorizes the Tennessee Valley Authority to create 2 dams. They dammed off those 2 rivers and created a canal to connect them. So that area that was once Land Between the Rivers is now Land Between the Lakes. It's a public use area run by the National Park Service. And there are still a lot of people that go missing in that park. I think there are at least 15 cases of missing persons in there that I know of that are active, and even more that are suspected. In 1982, supposedly a family of 4 was killed by a dogman. The military got involved. So the area is just rife with stories of dogman. And when I was in that area, I talked to a lot of people from that area. They're like, oh yeah, they're in there, and you better be careful if you're going in there. And then, of course, like an idiot, I went in by myself. But I was only by myself for about 36 hours. And then Nick Valente, my buddy from the National North American Dogman Project, him and I hooked up, and we did a lot of exploring together. There's a lot of really creepy areas in there. But on our last day in there, it was about 10:30 in the morning. It was fairly mid-morning. We were coming back from an area called DeMumbers Bay, and we were driving. He's got an H3 Hummer, and we're driving slowly, like looking down the roads. And I had my camera out on my phone. I had my phone up looking to film something, and I looked and I saw something, but it didn't register. And as I was turning my head away, it turned its head to look at me, and I like beating Nick on the arm to get him to stop. I get about a 15-second look at this thing, 10 to 15 seconds. Nick saw it for about 5 to 7 seconds, somewhere around in there. But it was a dogman. I mean, it was just standing there with its arm against a tree. Actually, it was his right arm. Jet black, head like a cross between a German Shepherd and a wolf, with the ears up and the tufts of fur on the end of the ears. And it was just looking straight at me. And I couldn't see its eyes because it was kind of backlit. But I saw it plain as day. I mean, just the same as I'm looking at my microphone here. I saw it just as plain as day. And when it realized that we were looking at it, that we had seen it, it kind of did this like, oh crap, like just kind of jerked and turned and sprinted for this ravine that was behind it. And it did kind of this loping, kind of bounding run, like jump to the side, and then it was down. And by the time we got out and got over there, you could see the impressions in the leaf litter where it had ran, but the ground was rock, hard pack. It hadn't rained in a while, so there was no way to cast tracks. But it was gone in seconds. Once it realized we were looking at it, it was gone. And Nick's like, "You want to go down there?" I'm like, "We're not getting down there without ropes." And then, they're going to have somebody drag my big butt out of there because I probably won't be able to climb back up. He's like, "Yeah, it's probably not a good idea. We're both unarmed." So we had a good solid visual, but we didn't pursue it. And fortunately, it wasn't an aggressive response. When it realized we'd seen it, it ran.
Right.
That is just rife with stories like that. One story of a fisherman who was right at dusk was pulling into an area to fish, and there was one just kind of crouched down at the edge of the water, and when it saw him, it started coming out toward him, and he fired up his motor and got out of there. Lots of fishermen stories seeing them along the shore, especially at dusk. There's stories of a bow hunter that was killed by one and dragged off. That family of four there's a family of four allegedly killed in 82. There's another story that happened in the mid 70s where a park ranger in a boat actually saw two people being mauled on the shore in Demumbers Bay where I was at. So there's a lot of stories of people being hunted and killed in that area, and dogmen are very dangerous.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let me get your personal or your professional opinion. So this fall we have reservations to go to Shawnee National Forest, and my husband's going to ride down there. And I looked it up. It's like an hour or so away from the LBL, and I don't ride the horses. And so I thought, well, one day while they go off horseback riding, I would just go there. And I mean, like, the way it sounds, if I stay in my car, do you think I'm safe? Or
yeah, I would think that if you stuck to the roads, as long as you don't, your car doesn't conk out or run out of gas or get stuck, because some of those roads are not the best of quality roads. Like the road back to Demumbers Bay probably hasn't seen any upkeep in the last decade or so. Most of it's paved, but you will run into sections that are just gravel. A lot of those campgrounds are very primitive campgrounds, and they're back in the woods on these dirt trails. No amenities, nothing but your fire and whatever you brought in with you. So if you stick to the trace and then go to like some of the main side roads that go out to maybe Demumbers Bay and some of the other campgrounds, you'll be fine. But if you're going in alone, I wouldn't recommend getting out and poking around too much unless you're close to a campsite.
Yeah, okay, because I would be going alone. Everybody else would be going horseback riding, and I thought, well, one day while they're doing that, I'd just go take a trip over there.
Another good place for you guys to go if he likes to horseback ride. There is a park in Arkansas near Eureka Springs, Arkansas, called War Eagle. And supposedly 2 guys on horseback got chased out of War Eagle by a white creature, a white Bigfoot type creature.
Really?
They described it much having the snout like a gugway, but it chased them out.
Wow. And a gugway, they're bad, aren't they?
Yeah, they're very aggressive.
Wow. Well, I'll let him know.
Do you mind? So what is a gugway? I'm unfamiliar with that.
A gugway is a type of Bigfoot with a face more like a mandrill or a baboon. It has a pronounced snout. Sometimes they get confused with dogmen because of the snout, but it's more mandrill-like or a baboon-like, and they're extremely aggressive. Like the Beast of Seven Shoots, it allegedly carried off somebody's dog and killed it. They're just all the Native American lore when they talk about the gugway, or in some tribes it's the cuckway. They're just reported as being very dangerous and aggressive. I liken types of Bigfoot to like types of bears. Like down here in the lower states, you've got black bears. You don't get a lot of grizzlies. Black bears are omnivorous. They're generally harmless unless you get between one of its cubs. Very rarely will you get an aggressive black bear. They do have accounts of black bear killing people. In fact, there was a lady down near, I think it was down near the Arkansas border, that had been feeding them on her porch. And when she stopped feeding them, they got really nasty. Tore her house up pretty bad. Didn't kill her, but they came after her. But anyway, black bears are rarely aggressive. You get a little farther north, you get the brown bears and the grizzly bears, much bigger, still omnivorous, more aggressive. You get stories of them mauling people fairly regularly, especially up in some of the remote mountains. If it's close to hibernation time, they can and will take people. Then you get a little farther north and you got polar bears. And polar bears are purely carnivorous. They don't eat berries. They eat slow Eskimos and backpackers. That's pretty much their diet.
Right. So you're saying that there's when it comes to Bigfoot, there's just like bears, there's different
types and different levels of aggression.
Different types and different levels of aggression depending on that type. Just like you were saying earlier with like animals, you've got different aggression, know. That's interesting. See, I had never heard that before.
We did a show
very interesting to me.
We did a show on different types of Bigfoot all over the world, and we need to go back and do that because I've added some to the list. But I've got a big list of Bigfoot type creatures from all over the world, and it's one I've been working on. I'm probably going to end up actually turning that into a nonfiction book. I've had a few people ask me about doing nonfiction cryptid books. Instead, I enjoy writing fiction. It's just fun to write. But I have been thinking about doing some nonfiction cryptid books, and I think doing the types of Bigfoot from around the world would be a good one. But when you look at it, there's, with the exception of Antarctica and I think the Hawaiian Islands, pretty much every continent has some sort of Bigfoot type creature. All over Asia, you've got the Yeti, the Yeren, the Alma, the Almasti. Right. They're all over Asia and Siberia. You've got the Yowie down in Australia. Here in America, you've got the Patterson-Gimlin type Sasquatch. You've got the skunk apes down in Florida. You've got the Momo the monster, or down in the swamps areas like around Texarkana. You've got a very aggressive type down there. They return to refer to them as wood apes or wood burgers, and they're known to be aggressive. So you've got different types, and I think a lot of it was localized adaptation in different environments. But then you're starting to get stories of like Gugway even in Missouri. So I think that they're expanding their territory. And one of the things I think, and this is just my own personal little slice of paranoia, I think when the Black Plague of the 21st century hit us and so many people stayed home for a year and a half, 2 years, we started seeing an uptick in animals in urban environments. I mean, even in Springfield's the third largest city in Missouri. We're getting people and we see it on the local news all the time, Ring doorbells are catching black bears and mountain lions in town. And we've got places down in Oklahoma that are reporting Bigfoot in town, coming in and raiding trash cans. There was a Dogman sighting that the NADP collected of a young guy who went to take the trash out late at night on the outskirts of St. Louis, and there was one at the end of his driveway. So these things are being seen in a lot more urban environments, and I think sightings are on the rise. And I don't just think that's because of shows like yours and mine. I think that's more people are feeling more comfortable coming forward, but I also think we're getting a lot more sightings than we have had in recent years.
Yeah.
Well, and I think people are also like they're home. I know that in the recent years since COVID, our paranormal sightings have gone through the roof. We've gotten more phone calls from families experiencing paranormal because they're home and they're seeing it more and they're noticing the changes. And so, I mean, kind of the same with Cryptid. They're home, they're inside their home more, and they're not out and about. So I think things are starting to come out more. They're feeling more comfortable because the norm has changed.
Right. And something else, I think, and this may just be me being crazy. And if you guys disagree, that's perfectly fine. I tend to go out on crazy rants once in a while. But I think once you've had a sighting, be that paranormal, a UFO, a Bigfoot, once your brain has made that connection that this is real, you start noticing more.
Yep.
Yes. You became more. I hate to use the word attuned because we're not like a tuning fork. When ding, it just doesn't work that way. But I think once that switch is flipped in your head, that you don't just dismiss it as your imagination anymore. Things suddenly start, wait, that was important. That was significant. Right. You don't shoo it off.
Right.
I mean, I tell people all the time who don't believe in paranormal and don't believe in mediums and things like that. I tell them, you know what? Like, I totally understand. For somebody to say, tell someone that their plates just like flew across the room. You think they're freaking nuts. Well, until you actually see that, I think it's life-changing. Whether it's plates being thrown across the room or you experience seeing something 8 to 10 feet tall, out in the woods where there's nobody else, until you experience that, like how do you, cope? And I think the brain just doesn't want to believe things like that, first off. And then second off, when you experience it, I think it really does trigger something in your brain to go, okay.
And I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
what I was going to say is once you've had that experience, and it's a shocker, it's a paradigm shift for a lot of people. I know people that have had sightings, experienced hunters who just, after that they're like, nope, go home and sell their hunting equipment, and they're done. They're not going back in the woods. They're done. But I think shows like what you guys have here, shows like mine, and I've had people write in and say this to me, and it really made me feel good that they have a place where they can be, where they can hear other stories and relate to people that make them not feel crazy for having this. And I've had people thank me for presenting this as an open, not as a joke. I mean, we're accepting it. We're presenting. We have a good time doing it. We laugh about goofy stuff. I'm not saying we don't not have any humor about it, but once you're among people that have accepted it, that don't think you're crazy and are willing to listen without a judgment, without going, oh, you're just an idiot, or you're crazy, or what were you smoking, that kind of thing. When you can be around people that are willing to accept you and validate what you saw, I think these shows like these are doing a lot of good for people. It's giving them a forum.
Absolutely.
And too, do you think that this is something I actually talked with Bettina about? Okay, so you have one experience, and so obviously it is life-changing. Do you feel like you have like a light bulb on your head that these cryptids or whatever can see, and then they'll come to you more often?
I think a lot of that is about animals sense humans' intent. If you've got a dog and somebody comes to your door and that dog doesn't like them, I trust the dog. If I've got a dog and he doesn't like somebody, there's a reason. Animals have a way of sensing your intent, and I think a lot of it has to do with your intent and the way you present yourself. If you go in the woods looking for trouble, you're probably going to find it. If you go out there with the intent, hey, I'm out here, I'm going to kill this thing, you're never going to see it. Yeah, but I always go out with just kind of a neutral intent. I mean no harm. I would never shoot one of these things unless it was to save my life or the life of somebody else. I'm not hunting one. I have no intention of being the guy that bags one and brings it in for science. I just want to know more about the subject. And I always kind of try to project that whenever I go into an area that I intend no harm. And because of that, I've heard vocalizations, some of them find kind of close. But I'm still waiting for that one clear Bigfoot sighting, which I haven't had to this point, but I know they've been close. And there's no doubt in my mind they're out there. I am solidly convinced. And it doesn't take anything to convince me that I'm going to see something, because I know at any time I could.
Wow.
Yeah.
It looked like Bernard Fox said he had his first paranormal occurrences in Montgomery City.
Happened to live on Elm Street.
That's a little creepy.
My wife grew up on Elm Street and Battlefield. We give her crap about that all the time. I tell her she's the nightmare on Elm Street.
Right. That's funny.
She's probably watching. I'll probably get smacked in the head anytime now.
Yeah.
DiNozzo style.
Right. And then where's another comment here that was kind of...
I was laughing at Anthony there. I don't do evil ghost things.
Yeah.
I go head to head with a Bigfoot, but no ghost stuff. Nope.
Yeah.
I want to take him to the museum. Like I
would love for him to. He's an awesome dude.
Anthony, you have to let us know when you come up to Springfield, because we will take you to the Ray County Museum.
I think it's like the fun moment where like one of y'all is going to take me on I'm going on the Bigfoot hunt. I'm honestly, I'm scared of Bigfoot. I stared out my window as a kid, like looking out in them woods going at, 16 years old going, nope, I ain't sneaking out. Bigfoot going to get my ass before dad. Like, but I can't wait to take that. I think it'd be fun to take him to ghost hunting.
DA is going to the museum with us.
Oh, absolutely.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. Robbie says he'll go to the ghost hunt.
I'm going to bring my EMF meter and all that stuff. So
he's going to have his little equipment. He's like, okay, I'm going to find it.
I'm going to go full E-gun.
There you go. Well, we can take you to the hot spots in the place.
Awesome.
It's pretty crazy. It's a pretty crazy place.
That'll be fun. I'm
Yeah.
excited for it. I'm excited for it.
I can't
Well,
wait for the whole weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. The whole thing is going to be fun. I love events like this, that you can everybody can just learn from one another, and you're just having fun doing
absolutely.
things that are out of maybe the norm, and you're learning something, because none of us are experts here. We're all learning from one another.
Right.
And this is all based off of experience sometimes. And to hear other people's experiences, I think, is a blessing that we have these opportunities to get together and listen to one another and really learn from one another. And it's great that we can do this in a safe environment,
I totally agree.
And be able to talk with one another. And I'm just really excited to do things like this with you guys. It's nice.
Absolutely.
Once in a while, gosh, on Friday.
I 100% agree with you. There are no experts in this field.
Right.
And if anybody claims to be an expert, they're selling you something.
They're a dumbass. They're a dumbass, and they probably don't know anything about it.
And that's the thing, why we do this, and we have such a wide variety of different speakers, because ultimately we're all into it for the same reason. We all want to learn, and I have interest in the cryptids. I also have interest in UFOs and aliens, that kind of thing too. So it's about para-unity for us, and everybody,
and it's strange. Sometimes you go looking for one and run into the other. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times people have gone out Bigfoot hunting and seen lights in the sky, or go to a graveyard looking for ghosts and get rocks thrown at them from the woods. You never know what you're going to run into.
Yeah.
Right. I think, it's pretty cool though that we all can, I just want all of us to be able to, like, the paranormal and the cryptid, be able to be one in a sense. I know they're very different things, but at the end of the day, we're all out to understand something that we don't understand, and we're having to rely on one another to get those answers at times. And I think, kind of like you, DA, we're out there to get the information out there. And my biggest goal is to be an avenue for somebody to not feel crazy. Because there is nothing worse than feeling nuts and feeling embarrassed and not knowing who to talk to or who to go to. And so it's great that we can create a forum where people can reach out to somebody. They can read a book. We know now where to go for books, things like that, where you can really not just learn about it, but enjoy it and have fun with it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's going to be a good time. Like I said, and the speakers I have, they're fantastic. And, I think, and all the speakers that we have coming, I mean, they're all really good people. So we're going to have a good time. I
really appreciate you guys inviting me. I'm really looking
forward. Oh my gosh. We're happy you're coming. Come on now. We're oh yeah. Woo-hoo.
I'll be wearing my obnoxious Bigfoot Hawaiian shirts.
Oh my gosh.
I have these Hawaiian shirts with Bigfoot surfing and other stuff. My wife told me, she says, I'm never going to go out in public with you wearing those, but I wore them at the Dogman conference and they were a big hit. So I'm going to wear them again.
You're I'm wearing them again, woman. I'm doing it.
I even ordered more, and she just goes, all right. So hopefully I'll have all new cryptid Hawaiian shirts for this one.
I just went to the Bigfoot Museum in Bailey, Colorado, and that was really cool. And I actually have my first Sasquatch clothing. I bought me a hoodie.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring it. And then I bought my grandson he's gonna be 8 years old in December, but I bought him a T-shirt with a Bigfoot. And I'll tell you what, I listen to different podcasts and YouTubes. And my 7-year-old grandson is totally into it. And he is coming that weekend, and he's excited for you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we were listening to, I don't know, one of the podcasts in the car, and it was one where people tell their encounter, And I was meeting my daughter, and we had met up there with her, and we hadn't finished yet. And he's like, "Grandma, you have to tell Mom, where is that? I got to finish. Why? I got to know what happens." It's so funny. So yeah, he's
Left
really
him on a
excited.
cliffhanger.
Yeah,
There we go.
exactly. Well, she did let him finish it, but he told me he's wearing his Bigfoot shirt, that
Awesome.
weekend. So,
Yeah, my 13-year-old is super excited. So he really is interested in it. I mean, he grew up in Washington State as well. So, but this 13-year-old is also a intuitive. So he's sensitive, and he does more artistic paintings and stuff to kind of mediumship through it.
Yeah.
Well, his thought though is he wants to so bad get a Sasquatch costume and do intuitive paintings. I was like,
That
oh
would be cool.
gosh.
That would be really cool.
So
I've got a couple of
surprised.
really high quality werewolf masks. I may be bringing them with me.
there you
I
go.
I will not be wearing them out in the woods. I don't want to get shot.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, this kid, he's like, he should have been born in like the 90s. Like, seriously, he's the funniest, like, coolest kid ever. But yeah, he has been looking up Sasquatch costumes, like good ones, because he wants to wear a Sasquatch outfit and paint intuitive paintings. I was like,
That would
oh,
be
look
cool.
at you being the little bridge between the two. He's
That's
so
hilarious.
excited about the set, but he's super excited about the Sasquatch investigation and meeting you and everything. He's like, yeah, he's like, he's finding like crazy stuff out there. To him, like seeing ghosts and stuff is like normal. So like for you, he's like, whoa, he hunts stuff.
Right. Yeah. What do you think like cryptids are? Like, you hear people say they're flesh and blood. Some people say they're Nephilim. Some people say they're aliens. What do you believe they are?
Well, my almost 20 years in law enforcement, I'm a physical evidence guy. Now, I'm not going to say that what they refer to as the woo. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I have not experienced it. I know people that said that they've experienced mind speak, and credible people who I would not say they're making it up. I wouldn't call anybody out on that. Your experience is your experience. I'm not going to discount that. It just hasn't happened to me. So I'm still leaning. I'm solid in the flesh and blood creature category, because some of the things that get ascribed to Bigfoot, like they say it can cloak. Well, there are ways to explain that. I've got a good. What's that?
Can you explain some ways?
Sure, absolutely. Well, one of the things in a lot of the hair samples that they've collected from of believe Bigfoot hair samples, it has a clear shaft, much like a polar bear, which means it absorbs the light around it and can redirect the light. That means if it's standing among something green, it's going to look green. So it's almost a natural camouflage. And also, an example I like to use, I've got a friend that I grew up with who was an Army Ranger. And I was giving him crap one day, and I was saying, "Oh yeah, you guys, all the hype. You can't just disappear in the woods." And by God, he did. I could not find that son of a gun. He's like, "Oh yeah, where am I at?" And I'm like, and it was just he knew how to do it. And this is a guy that was trained to do it. He's not wearing a natural ghillie suit and was born in that environment. He was trained by the Army to do it. So if you've got an elusive creature out there, say if it's a relic Neanderthal, or if it's a descendant of Gigantopithecus, I believe it's a flesh and blood creature. And if it's got this natural adaptive ability to hide and camouflage, and it doesn't want to be found, that could very well explain why people think it just disappears. Because my buddy Mike did it. I mean, I was 5 feet away from the guy, and he goes, "Oh yeah, where am I at?" And I turn around, and he was freaking gone.
Wow.
And guys, snipers that in the military with a ghillie suit, in order to pass the sniper school, they've got to be able to be out there engaging targets and not be found. So that if humans can learn to do this, what about a creature that was born to it? So if they don't want to be found, they're not going to be found.
What do you feel the correlation? Do you feel there's anything with them and aliens?
Again, I don't know. I mean, I can't say it's impossible. A lot of people have had sightings, have then later seen UFO in the same area. But if UFOs, if alien cultures that are that advanced are coming here to study us, if like people that have had stories of alien abduction, and I believe those are legit stories. These people are having these very traumatic memories of being abducted. If they've come all this way to study humanoid life, why wouldn't they study all humanoid life? So it could be a case of them studying the Bigfoot just as much as they are us.
Yeah, gotcha. What do you think? Oh, looks like we have Mark. Hey, Mark. DA, Mark DA.
Mark, nice to meet you.
Mark is going to be at Fall Into the Supernatural. He's our
awesome
tech guy. So
nice.
He's helping us all out with our audio and all that good stuff. And he is also a board member at the Ray County Museum.
Nice. Awesome.
So he's going to, we can't hear you, Mark.
Can't hear you, dude.
Is our mute on? We can't hear you at all.
The mic might be muted.
Is the mic muted? No, I hear nothing. I hear nothing from you, Mark. Talk.
Can you hear us?
He's trying. So, yeah, I hear nothing from you. That's must be Aaron right there. Aaron's internet is awful at home, so she goes to Mark's work and gets her internet. And Aaron,
I'm sorry.
Was Mark?
No, it's you.
Yeah, he was on mute.
Okay. Well, he couldn't get it off because we tried.
I put it on mute.
You should have told me that.
I put it on mute to tell you what. Yeah, I probably should have, but I put it on mute to tell you I had to pee.
Okay, Aaron.
Now everybody knows.
There you go. I have another question for you, DA.
Shoot.
What do you believe? I believe, like, people tell me I'm a huge, like, conspiracy theorist.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally believe the government knows about Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the Dogman. I think they know about everything. And I 100% believe they cover stuff up.
Oh yeah, I completely believe they cover it up. I believe the government has known about these cryptids for a very long time, and I'll give you my tinfoil hat story on this if you want to hear it.
Yes.
One of the earliest known written accounts of a Bigfoot sighting is the Bauman incident that was recorded by Teddy Roosevelt in his book The Wilderness Hunter. In this event, a trapper named Bauman went up into an area where the Native Americans told him not to go with his partner, and his partner was killed by a Bigfoot, and he escaped. Now, this was recorded by a very young Teddy Roosevelt. The level of detail that's told, I know a lot. I'm Ozarks hillbilly, and I know a lot of these guys that live in the backwoods. You don't get that level of detail out of people. I think, and this is just my crazy theory, but I've got a lot of people that think that think it could very well be true. I think because Teddy Roosevelt had political aspirations, he didn't want to admit that he was Bauman. I think he told the story as it being relayed to him instead of it actually being first person, because a lot of the details he mentioned we would only have known he'd been there. So I think the Bauman story was actually Teddy Roosevelt's personal Bigfoot encounter.
Wow.
So then Teddy Roosevelt, flash forward, President Teddy Roosevelt, what's one of the first things Teddy Roosevelt did as president? He created the national park system, cordoning off millions of acres we're still not allowed access to.
Makes sense.
Makes complete sense when you look at it.
Yeah. Well, which president was it that, like, they say met with, like, at Area 51 and oh gosh, I'll have to Google it real quick. But
I think it might have been Eisenhower, because I know Area 51. I think
Because
Area 51
think
wasn't
it was.
formed until after World War II.
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to say it was Eisenhower.
yeah. So I mean, supposedly he met with aliens and allowed them that they can do, this
A certain
amount
amount
of
yeah.
alien abductions, and whatever in exchange for technology. And I watched an interview with his granddaughter, and she fully believed, like this is what she's been told,
Mhm.
So I totally believe the government they cover up a lot of stuff, and not just.
I think a lot of our technology has come from aliens, from alien technology. I mean, look at the level of technology. I was born in 1970, And in 1970, a computer filled a room the size of my house.
Yeah.
Jump forward to the mid 80s, and suddenly they've got desktop computers. Granted, they were dinosaurs compared to what they are now. You might have had a 20 megabyte hard drive if you had one at all, with that little 3.5-inch floppy drive, and then the 5.25 before that. You know, and technology had jumped a long way. But look how far since the 80s, how far this technology has come. I mean, we've got more computing power in a cell phone than what they used to take men to the moon in the 60s.
Right.
We're carrying around a portable communication device with the capability of talking to anyone on the planet if you can text, if they can receive text, or they have access
Right.
to that technology. You know, granted, some people in very rural areas don't, like in regions of Africa and in some of the places in Eurasia. Some people just don't have internet technology. But if somebody, well, like this morning, just for example, I was exchanging text with a buddy of mine in Australia, and we were just chatting away. You know, that was unheard of 20
Right.
years ago, 30 years
Yeah.
ago. And now it's so commonplace we don't even think about it. Look how far technology has jumped in such a short amount of time, and what they're predicting is going to happen next. I mean, the next generation of computers are basically going to be BioWare.
Right. Yeah. I just, there's just so much out there. And I feel like all the presidents know what's going on.
Mhm.
You know, I just, yeah. And I'm hoping, and I don't mean to get political here, but I'm hoping like Biden's so stupid, like he like lets it crack, you know, lets it slip what's really out there.
Well, makes you wonder who he's trying to shake hands with.
Right, exactly. So nothing.
Sorry, bad.
I'll get off of that.
Some of those videos are pretty funny.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, the riding of the bikes. But anyway.
Well, I've done that on a bicycle, but you know, there's alcohol involved.
Right, exactly. I've done that walking, and there's alcohol involved. So yeah, no, totally get it. Aaron, do you have anything else for DA?
I'm just really happy that he's here and that we're able to, talk with him. I love learning. And so I love being able to communicate with you and listen to your podcasts.
I love being here. Thank you, guys.
It's so rewarding to be able to like listen to other people. And as you know, I know I'm on the different, what we would say in the paranormal community and cryptid community is like, it's like two different things. Yes, I'm a medium. I do paranormal investigations. It's so nice to be able to listen to your shows and be able to feel like I have a safe place. I mean, how crazy is that? You know what I mean? Like the medium has a safe place to go and listen. And I think that this is a moment where I'm really excited to have you here, because I feel like the two can kind of come together and understand that we're all looking for something that is bigger than what we're here doing right now. And so I just want to really tell you, thank you for being here, and thank you for talking with us and spreading that like information out there, because people need to hear this stuff. People need to not feel crazy, and they need to know that they're, So thank you.
It's absolutely my pleasure. I was thrilled to death when you guys invited me on the show. I'm like, oh heck yeah, I'm happy to do it. But it's just, and I'm right there 100% with you. I mean, as long, I think that you get investigators that are like very guarded about their findings, and they don't want to share them with anybody. And I'm not like that. If I've learned something, I'm happy to share it. And I think, in the paranormal community or the UFO community, things that you guys have investigated sometimes lead to discovery in other fields. It's really, we're trying to explore. We're trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to find out answers to mysteries that baffle us, and it's really just one big community to me. And I am happy and thrilled to death that I can be part of that community, and in a place where I can exchange my ideas and theories, and nobody thinks I'm a wackadoo, even for my off the wall Roosevelt theory. But it to me, it just makes
sense. It does to me too. I got to tell you, my specialty in the paranormal is I do. I like, as I call it, the bad shit.
Mhm.
So the more negative type hauntings, is the ones that I help with. And I've even, demonology is a big, huge thing for me. And just like you said, it's like, some people, and that's why I guess maybe I want to know more like about dogmen, because a lot of people say they're a demonic entity. I don't see that though. I've seen some stuff that I can't explain that would totally blow people's minds away. And very few people, Aaron knows some of the things I've seen, but I don't go around telling people because they'll think you're crazy. So I agree with Aaron, places like your YouTube and they are safe places, be it, cryptids or ghosts or whatever,
We love paranormal stories and UFO stories too. And we tell people in our chat, I mean, if you've got a paranormal story and you want to share it on here, send me the story. If you want to tell it yourself, get a hold of me and we'll see what we can work out. I'm all about it. And I find those stories, though, even though like the Ozarks haunting stories, because there's a lot of them. One of the things I always try to point out to people is the Ozark mountain range is actually one of the oldest mountain ranges on the planet. The reason that they're not as big is because they're eons older than the Rocky Mountains and the other younger mountain ranges. But at one time they were taller than the Rockies. Yeah. So the power of these mountains runs deep. It's an ancient mountain range full of mysteries and secrets, and every hollow and valley throughout the Ozarks has its own strange tales. You see so many places that are called like Devil's Hollow or Booger Creek and things like that. They didn't just call it Devil's Hollow on a lark. Something had to happen for them to call it that.
Exactly.
You look at those old maps and you see those old place names, and it just really piques your curiosity. What happened there? What caused that? And it's those mysteries that just drive me forward. I just want to know more. I want to learn about the paranormal. I want to learn more about cryptids. It's these mysteries that will always plague us, and I think that's the love of that mystery is what unites us all.
Yeah, for sure. If you ever want to hear some scary demonic stories, I've got some for you. I can.
I'd love to hear them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you want to come on some night and tell some stories, heck yeah, I'm down.
Absolutely.
As Doc could say, I'm down like 4 flat tires.
Yeah, just let me know. Like I said, I'm in it to help people. There's not a lot of people out there that do this kind of stuff, and we don't charge to help people. It's that single mom, that's got these kids at home that has nowhere else to turn.
Right.
So that's where we go in and help them. And I will give you a hint. My craziest story has to do with the demonic, the BTK killer, and an M13 gang member.
Really?
So, yeah. That's, what one I'm talking
about. That'd be a cool story to hear then.
Tell you all about it. Yep. So.
And anyway. I am like Anthony, where if it's demonic, no, thank you. So
I've always been
Anthony.
My mother used to tell me. My mother, before she passed away, used to tell me that I would blunder in where angels feared to tread, and that's kind of been the hallmark of my life. I've never wanted to be the second guy through the door. I've always wanted to be the first one to find out, and it's just kind of that's fueled my cryptid research and my love of this paranormal field. And it probably always will. I mean, and I'll still be wanting to do this when I'm old and gray and telling my grandkids, push me faster, I want to see it.
Yep, me too. I just
in the wheelchair trying to catch up with it.
Yeah, but, like I said, it's all about even the same thing in the cryptids that you do. It's about helping people and educating them. And I'm sure if someone called you and said they having dogman encounters, you're going to find them help.
Well, I have had emails where people saying, I've got these things coming around my property. What do I do? I don't want them around my kids. And I've answered quite a few emails and like, hey, if you're wanting to keep them away, there's a few things you can do that might work. But basically, don't taunt them. Don't shoot at them, because then you're going to get the attention you don't want.
Right. Do you have any of those? What's the scariest Dogman story you can tell us real quick?
The one of the scariest stories I've ever heard, and this would freaking terrify me if I had this happen. There's a gentleman lived near the land between the lakes, and lived in a 2-story house, and he had a dog door in his back kitchen door, so his dog could go in and out at will. And it was a good sized dog, like I believe it was a German Shepherd. Well, he was in bed one night, and the dog woke him up. He said the dog was acting really weird. And he's like, what's going on? And it was like freaking out. And it was, it's like going to the stairs and coming back and going to the stairs. So he flipped on the light, went downstairs and went in the kitchen. And there was a dog man, a head and arm and a shoulder through that dog door trying to get in. And
oh, man.
He shot at it and it back out and took off. But had that dog not alerted him, it might have got in.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, my God.
No.
Yeah, no.
I'd have been like, nope.
No.
Time to get the plywood and the nail gun. We're shutting this sucker tonight.
No more doggy door.
No.
Even in the woods, I wouldn't want to do that anyway. I'd come in the house sometime and find a raccoon in your kitchen, right in your refrigerator.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't want a doggy door either.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass on that.
Yeah.
No.
Well, Anthony just said they follow you home. Is there a lot of stories of that?
There are quite a few. A lot of researchers have said they've gone out to research areas. I haven't had that happen to me because I where I go, I make sure it's miles and miles away from the house.
Right.
Because I don't want one of these things following me home. But there are a lot of researchers that have done research in wooded areas not far from their home and then gone home and found, something on their porch or saw it in their backyard. Sometimes they do follow you home. They're very intelligent, and I'm talking both Dogman and Bigfoot. They're intelligent. They're excellent trackers, and if you've wronged one, they'll find you.
Wow. Yeah. And do you think they like follow the scent of you?
I think that's part of it. I think they're very good at tracking for one thing, but I think once they kind of get a feel for who you are, they can kind of follow that. And that might be a little on the parapsychological side. They might be able to track your brain waves, or they just lock on you as a person. But there are people that have gone many miles from their research spot and then later had one show up in their backyard.
Wow.
So they're very capable of tracking you.
Yeah, that's scary stuff. Wow. Crazy. Well, Aaron, anything else for DA?
I don't think. You know what? We gotta save some more for later too.
Oh, absolutely. Do you mind if I plug my books quickly?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You do that.
Folks, if you like cryptid style stories, I write primarily horror and some sci-fi, but a lot of my stories are horror stories that involve cryptids. I have multiple series. The Codename Wild Hunt series is about a military group that hunts dangerous cryptids. Apex Predator series is about a group of Native Americans that do essentially the same thing. They hunt dangerous dogmen type creatures and werewolves. The Lakeview Man is about a small sheriff's department that deals with cryptid threats that show up in their area. So I've got multiple cryptid series, including the Nightmare Hunter, which is kind of a modern day version of Kolchak the Night Stalker. It's an internet reporter that kind of got in over his head. But I've got all these cryptid series. So if you enjoy cryptid stories, they're very action oriented. I would check them out. I would recommend starting with the first book of the Apex Predator series, Apex Predator Wolf Moon. There's a timeline on my website that will show you the best order to read them in because the series are all interconnected. Mm-hmm. And I'd hope you guys would check them out at daroberts.net.
Awesome.
Yes. And also your podcast.
It's called DAX Machina. You can find it on YouTube at youtube.com/DARobertsAuthor.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you guys haven't gone there, follow, you guys are going to get a lot of information and just a lot of, interesting topics, so many different things. And also kind of the same sort of thing that we're doing here. A safe place to just go and ask questions and get information on stuff. And DA has been awesome with answering a lot of these questions for us. A lot of my questions because I'm not
just happy to.
Right. I don't want, I don't feel dumb asking questions. So either should you if you don't know what's going
on.
Absolutely.
And I am happy 100% of the time to share anything I know. I mean, what's worked for me, what hasn't. And again, just like you were saying earlier, there are no experts in this field.
Right.
If you've
Yeah.
got a theory that you think about that explains the paranormal or cryptids, your theory is just as valid as any of mine, because
Right.
all we have is theories. We can't prove
Right.
any of this.
Right.
So until science is actually cataloged and proven the existence of these creatures, all we have is these theories, and sharing these stories so we can learn base behaviors. Through hundreds and hundreds of accounts, we have started to learn some of the behaviors of these creatures. We've seen commonalities in these stories, so we're starting to be able to predict things like rock throwing or slapping the side of a house or certain vocalizations. So this is how we learn. We share these stories, we share information together, and this is how we will continue to learn in these fields. And I am thrilled to death to be able to meet folks like you that we can share ideas with, and these conventions where we can meet people and talk and share ideas. And that's what it's all about in this field. It really is.
For sure.
Yep.
For sure.
It is. It is. Thank you so much for being here. And
My pleasure.
thank you everybody for liking and sharing, and keep sharing it, keep liking it, get it out there, get the word out there. And
Absolutely.
we appreciate all of you.
Yep. Yes. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Appreciate it. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
And broadcast.